Hi, welcome to Build Well podcast with your hosts, Courtney and Sean Garner. Today, we're going to go deep into kingdom entrepreneurship and talk about a personal topic, which is the difference between, or the gap between calling and passion and actual business viability.
We started talking about this in some of the other past episodes, but I think my quick rantiness is backing up to the foundation of what I think has caused a lot of issues with kingdom business owners. So I think that it started off probably, what I was told by one of the professors was that back in the 70s, there was a big, huge, almost like the Jesus movement, right? And so it pushed so many people to living radically for Christ. That's awesome. But in that, what ended up happening is people missing the overall concept. So what ended up happening is there was a lot of people that were called to business, because like we've said, entrepreneurship and business is a calling, but they confused being called, when God called them to something, that he must only call them to ministry, and not understanding that they can be Christ in the marketplace. And so what that ended up doing is a bunch of people ended up shifting out of the marketplace that were truly called to be kingdom entrepreneurs and in the marketplace, and they went into to be a pastor or to start a church. And you just saw a lot of these smaller churches ended up starting and then never really taking off or thriving because people weren't walking in their calling. They were called by God. We all are. We're
all called to minister.
Yeah, but they were thinking that and confusing that calling for ministry to doing a full-time vocational ministry or minister. And so what that ended up doing is it left this big gap in the marketplace that now what's happened is it's getting filled by the people of the world because they saw the opportunity of nobody was stepping up and doing that. So because all of these kingdom-minded people went into ministry when they should have just stayed in the marketplace. So now there's a big gap to where hopefully
we've lost our place in the market, right? So now it's like we're seeing this shift back. I don't know if you notice it, but I do. It's like, hey, we're starting to see business owners get more bold and realize like, hey, I don't need to be in vocational ministry. That's not where God has me. But, okay, how do I do this in the marketplace? And then also there's a gap and a lack of education on almost like how to blend the two things together and just be salt and light with whatever you do, whether, it's medicine for me, it's marketing for you, plumbers, whatever the industry is, there's a way to represent Christ in a beautiful way inside the market.
Yeah, because it doesn't having like a kingdom business or anything like that doesn't mean that like people are coming in, we're laying hands on them.
Hey, I do.
But, I mean, you're a plumber, you're not walking in, you're doing that.
Light.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing that. So
do.
I think that's where people get confused is they think that like, oh, what I'm supposed to preach now at my restaurant, or I'm supposed to, they don't understand that aspect.
My favorite when we decide to name everything.
Yeah. Kingdom roofing.
Okay, someone's gonna watch this with that name. I'll apologize to you in advance. It's a good name.
Yeah, or like they do their business is a kingdom business because they put a little cross or a fish in their logo or something like that.
We don't have to do it that way. We
don't be cheesy about it.
We don't have to be cheesy, but we can be salt and light. But hey, there may be people that are watching this today and they're in a season where they're like knowing God has put giftings and passions for certain business ideas, or they recognize that there are certain skill sets that they have. But we want to talk specifically today about how to take your passion, your calling, but then put good business structure around it. Because there's a point where you can be passionate about something, but it's not a good business, or there's no value in the marketplace for that. We could probably name examples, but I want to start to differentiate this idea of passion and what's a hobby versus what can we actually make a viable, lasting business out of.
Yeah, I think that too often people are like, oh, I like doing this thing. I know I'm called to business, so that maybe that should be my business. Like, no, like you should enjoy what you do, and you should have the skills to support it. But it doesn't mean that the favorite thing that you like to do is going to be your primary source of income. I love barbecue, but guess what? Me barbecuing and smoking food all day.
That's a lot of sandwiches.
That's a lot of pulled pork that you got to be selling and everything. So I'm passionate about that. And so, yeah, we are starting like a small little nonprofit with, but it's not going to be a huge money maker like business. It's not a business opportunity and everything like it is with the agency.
So there's 3 times where I think that there's 3 misses, I would want to say, that happen all the time. People have the right calling, but they're in the wrong market. Passion without a demand for the business. This is something you love doing, but no one is willing to necessarily pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? I think of that as a little hobby things, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does, but
artistic things, I think of this happening a lot.
well, I saw this with me. And so like this was huge in the fitness industry when I was doing that on both sides. Whenever we originally got into the fitness industry, it was here in Oklahoma. Love my Okies, but you guys don't like to work out as much as the people in Miami.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I was really good at my craft. My skills didn't change when we moved, but here in Oklahoma, it was a big deal if somebody was spending, $135 a month for like boot camp CrossFit classes. But then when we moved to Miami, my skills didn't change. The market changed, and there people are paying me $150 to $300 an hour for personal training. So my skills didn't change, but I was definitely communicating and working with the wrong market. Then when the agency started up, the agency started out primarily as like fitness business coaching, and I was working with my people, right, the personal trainers and the gym owners, and teaching them how to do all this stuff. But very few of them make a lot of money. And so it was really difficult for them to struggle to keep paying, because they would cap out with as many clients as they could see, and their business kind of flatlined, so they stopped paying. Versus now working with service-based businesses that they can scale, they do want to grow their business and everything. So the skill set, applying it to the right market, is very key to be successful.
Very key. And if the market that you're going after or trying to serve doesn't feel the pain of the solution you're trying to provide, it's just going to be a hobby. You might make a few $100 here and there, but it's never going to be a true business that you can leave your job, for, or really scale and execute. Okay, miss number 2, right calling, wrong execution. We could talk for hours about this topic. So many people, I find, have a great idea. They definitely have a gifting and a skill set, but they're lacking business skills. Their execution on their deliverable or their execution as a business structure is a train wreck.
Yeah, I think every entrepreneur is going to go through a variation of that. Like when you first start, you don't know what you're doing. Like I think about even us with our companies and businesses that we own, like how we structure our packages, how we hire, how we onboard staff, that has changed dramatically versus like the different mindsets of going into things of like trying to do it all ourselves versus trying to grow and scale a team. Like you're going to go through variations of that where people run into the issues when they get stuck in that. And they get stuck in that of just like, oh, if I'm just going to keep doing the same thing, but more of it and harder and stuff like that. It's not going to pull you out of the situation.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so true. I also feel like with the execution part, there's a ton of people who have a calling, but they're early in their skill set within that artistry almost, right? Like in my world, practitioners just knowing they don't want to work for a 9-to-5 hospital world anymore. And so they start, they get into this idea of functional medicine, but they have almost no training and they're starting functional medicine practices, right? And I have a disdain for it because it's like when you're really an artist and you have 15, 20 years of experience or something, we all have to start somewhere, so I get it, right? But what's the execution of that, right? And maybe that ties right into the miss number 3, which is the right calling, but the wrong season.
Yeah.
And the wrong season is going to be the wrong outcome altogether. This is probably one of the most painful mistakes any entrepreneur can make.
Yeah, with what you were saying, I think pride is the limiting factor with a lot of people, is because, especially like what you were just saying, man, they've been in this career for 10, 15 plus years and they're good at that skill set. There has to be a level of humility because now you do have to kind of start at square one with your career, right? You've done the thing,
right,
but it's a whole different skill set to now do the thing on your own and to build the
running
systems.
Out of it.
It's a completely different thing. And so I think pride holds a lot of people back from executing on those things because they almost feel too good to have to start back over and to, make the thing happen. When it comes to the season aspect of it, I think that people can confuse what seems like a good short-term opportunity versus looking at the big picture or long-term win, because I think, and you can say disagree with this, I think it's a lot easier to start things than to grow, scale, and see things through. Because you'll see people pop up business ideas all the time. It's really easy to just throw up a landing page and put your logo in a hat and start the LLC and stuff like that. But to make it a viable business, that's where the common stat that's always said is like most businesses don't survive the 5-year mark and stuff. Like sustaining the thing is difficult, because if you plant it and you plant it too soon and then you try and start pulling the fruit off of it too soon, like you're going to kill the thing.
Yeah, that. And then also, I think thinking about where you are in your season of life. You can know you're supposed to do something, but that doesn't always mean God's telling you to do it right now, right? I think that happens all the time, where there's someone who they have a great idea, but maybe they're early in the market and it falls flat. They run out of cash because they were just 3 years ahead. And then, a few years down the road, that business has closed down. You see someone come in and do the exact same thing, but now the market is ripe and ready and people are buying from that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there can absolutely be a wrong season. I would also say too, on a personal note, being in alignment as a couple is huge on this. We have personally had a situation where the idea of fitness as a calling, or being a part of our calling, a part of our calling and who we are is to help people be healthy and to showcase a healthy lifestyle. And that goes back for 15, 20 years for us, really like early in our marriage of having that as something we saw ourselves really wanting to participate in the kingdom as a whole of this healthy lifestyle, right? And so fitness was always a part of that. But we got into a business that failed miserably.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the wrong idea, but it was absolutely the wrong season and probably the wrong location in a way. But so probably two of those things happened for us. But Sean, tell us a little bit of that from your perspective. I think there was a couple of mistakes that we made, but I think it might be helpful for people that are in this situation, or trying to figure out where the point of the jump is. What was our wrong season?
I mean, like now it's easy because there's so many of them, but it definitely was the alignment thing. We weren't aligned with it at all.
Yeah.
I was trying to force function the timing of it, because a lot of times, like if you've ever done things like tried to start a business, tried to find a location and tried to nail down a lease, like eventually whenever you see so many opportunities in front of you, the best of the worst options seems like it's a great idea. So like even for us with the location that we signed on that business in particular, like we had looked at so many leases and so many different spots. This was not a great spot, but because we had seen so much junk, it looked like it was a good idea.
Right.
So sometimes being able to step back and look at everything in context, like if we would have just seen that spot, like no way we would have signed that lease and everything. The other thing is just making sure that whenever you go into something, it's the equally yoked. So not only us, but then with other people that we were bringing into the situation, everything too. Like, are your beliefs aligned, not just spiritually, but beliefs and direction on the business, right? And making sure that all that stuff stays in alignment, because both people could be right and have good ideas, but if they're not aligned, you're going to be going two different directions.
And then, in any partnership, and if you're an individual opportunity and you're starting the business, that you're aligned with your spouse, because nothing will destroy a marriage and a business faster than being unequally yoked or not seeing eye to eye on business. And for us too, I think it was a crazy season. We were financially unprepared for it not going well.
Yeah.
We did not have the capital that we needed to sustain bad months or endure bad months. We were full of faith. I think we Jerichoed the thing and walked around the building 7 times in belief that this was what God was calling us to. But and not to say that it wasn't the right idea. It was at that time, the fitness concept was athletic training. But in Tulsa, there was not people at that moment that were heavily investing into their kids' fitness and their kids' athletic training for sports. This was 12 years ago. Now, that business would probably boom in so many ways. If there is a way for a fitness business to boom, because people are now spending so much on their kids' athletic abilities and college athletes home for the summer. And people are starting to talk about functional training and they're starting to be more movement-minded. We were really early in the market. And being early in the market, not being equally yoked, and not having the financial resources and reserves to endure hard months crushed us and nearly left us bankrupt.
Yeah. On the timing thing though too, because you're saying what you're saying, I would also remind people of the opposite. So you can also be too late. And so, another investment that comes to mind with us is with one of the short-term rentals. We're in a market now that with one of the properties that it seemed like an awesome deal, but then as soon as we got in, like a couple of years later,
timing.
like the market changed because we got in too late. So typically a lot of times, especially when it comes to investments, if a lot of people are talking about it, you're probably too late.
Right. There's that quote of be stingy.
Warren Buffett, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the quote.
Be
greedy.
Greedy when everyone is stingy, and then be stingy when everybody else is greedy.
I don't think that's the
It's
quote.
something along those lines.
All right, we get the point. So Sean, when we're talking through the idea of, we've said first of all, calling is really about identity and purpose. Business is really about value exchange. Someone needs to have a real problem that we can solve and that they're willing to pay for it, right? We've got to begin teaching people to build sustainable businesses, because you can have the best calling, but we really need to find the markets that are real and worthy of that calling, so that the business can sustain and sustain structure. What is one unique thing that we can really offer in the marketplace? Let me rephrase that. As the entrepreneur, I think it's important for people to find this intersection between the unique thing they can offer and what the market actually needs and is willing to pay for. So with that in mind, how do you translate that into your marketing business? How have you thought through those things of like what people really need and trying to also figure out what they're willing to pay for?
Yeah. This is something that we actually do as a service for our clients at the agency. So they come to us a lot of times with the ideas or with the skills, and it's helping them to identify and learn how to kind of hone in and focus on this on themselves. So I think the root issue, if people don't check this, is they've got a poverty mindset, and that's what keeps everything limited, and instead of like a growth mindset or more of a prosperity type mindset. Why I say that is because the clients or the entrepreneurs that struggle with this, they want to be everything to everybody. Like, no, I can help everybody. I can do all of the things. Yeah. That doesn't sound like it, but what it really is a poverty mentality, because I truly believe that there are specific people that you are called. If you're called, there's specific people that you're called to, and because every calling is aligned with people and callings, those things connect. So there's a specific group of people that you are called to serve with a specific set of skills and services. Where businesses start to struggle and lose all that momentum and clarity is whenever they try to be all things to all people and they haven't really identified like who it is that they want to work with. And so they're afraid that if they get too specific that they're going to leave people out or that people aren't going to want to work with them. But it's actually the opposite. So what I'll typically tell clients when we're working with them with this is, just by default, if you were to talk to like a general doctor and ask them a question versus like a neurosurgeon, you're automatically going to assume the neurosurgeon knows more because they are specialized in a very specific thing versus just a general practitioner type doc and stuff. The same thing applies to your business. If you niche down, you're not necessarily saying I'm not going to work with a specific group of people, but you become an expert in a certain niche. So then that way you attract everybody because you are an expert and you're not just this general person.
Okay, so have you ever come across a business client that has this new idea and they're super passionate and excited about it, but you're like, how are you going to make that a business?
A lot of times I see that with e-commerce, like physical products. Somebody has created this product that they're excited about, whether it's like a physical product or an app, and they think because the idea is good, that it's instantly going to make them a ton of money and everything. And they don't. And when they were trying to sell the product, they were trying to sell it to a specific niche that doesn't necessarily want to pay for the product. So one of them that comes to mind was like a medical device product that they were super excited about it, but it was so niche and it wasn't anything that physicians or anything would be interested in. They were trying to sell it to direct to consumer and everything. And they thought because it was a good idea and that it helped a couple of people that it was going to make them a ton of money. But they didn't want to go the physician route because they were afraid that the physicians would take their ideas and cut them out. And so it ended up leaving them with something that never even took off.
Okay. When you're thinking through coaching clients, what are signs? Like if you had somebody who had a new idea, what would be some signs that the market is ready and willing to pay?
Don't be first.
That's fair.
That's one thing. I think that sometimes if it's a new pioneering idea, like it's difficult. Like it always, like there's the other joke quote, we're butchering this one too, about like, you don't want to follow the person that's got all the arrows in their back. Like that's going to be the true trailblazer. Like it's going to be difficult. So I'm not saying don't do that, but you need to know that going in, that being an innovator is a lot more difficult than being an optimizer, like taking something and tweaking it and spinning it to your own way. So if it is too new of an idea, I'm not saying don't do it, but you need to have the reality check of if you're doing something that no one's done, there could be a massive payoff, or guess what? Lots of good ideas have failed. And so what I typically try to tell people is like, if you are looking at this, like success leaves clues. That's another Tony Robbins thing, but like success leaves clues. So look at what's worked and don't necessarily copy, but there's definitely clues that were left along the ways for strategies that you can follow to implement in whatever it is that you are called to do.
I think that's great. I've heard someone say before, if you see an idea that's worked, how can you make it better? How can you deliver it faster? Or how can you make it more economical and scalable? And if you can accomplish one of those three things, I don't think cheaper is always better. That's not my point. If you want to be able to do it, but do it in a deeper way, okay, that's probably a higher price point thing. But you're right, you can take someone else's business structure or the idea of it, and that's innovation as well, is just how do we find a way to make it better?
Yeah.
We're going to take a pause here. This was part one, all about the gap that we need to fill between passion and business. We're going to pick up on this in part two next week.